Hey everybody, John the Other here, obviously. And I want to talk briefly today about Professor Jordan Peterson, who, among other things, is a professor of psychology at the University of Toronto. He's a highly esteemed and much accomplished educator. And he teaches, or at least has taught until now, at one of the most respected universities in Canada, University of Toronto. Now, Professor Peterson is in a heap of hot water because, among other things, he refuses to use a set of made-up, make-believe, and frankly, silly-ass pronouns, which are replacement pronouns for things like him, her, them, they, alternative gender pronouns, zim, zer, z, zip, zip, blah, blah, blah. Now, he doesn't refuse to use these pronouns when some friend or colleague or student of his says, Professor Peterson, if you don't mind, I would prefer instead of you calling me him, you call me Zim. That is not the circumstance in which Professor Peterson refuses. He refuses because he has been told under penalty of law that he must use these made-up, make-believe, and silly words. Now, the argument against Professor Peterson, against his refusal, is that in refusing to use these made-up silly-ass words, zim, zer, z, and it's a long list that grows and grows and grows, it continues to grow. In his refusal, they say, he is degrading and dehumanizing the people that these pronouns supposedly refer to. Well, that argument is a falsehood. It's a lie. Professor Peterson is an educator. It's his life's work to educate and to enlighten his students. He's not in the business of degrading people. It's a specious and despicable lie. So what is the actual purpose that the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal or the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal, I think they're calling themselves the Social Justice Tribunal, what is the actual purpose of attempting to force him under penalty of law to use this set of make-believe pronouns? Well, remember who he is. He is a highly accomplished and highly respected educator at a high-ranking Canadian university. Well, they're trying to force him, under penalty, to use a set of make-believe, silly-ass words that actually obscure meaning rather than enlighten, to demoralize him and to degrade his sense of self, his sense of value. The attempt to impose a required set of gender pronouns on a respected professional, respected educator, is an attempt from an authoritarian body in the form of the Human Rights Tribunal, the Social Justice Tribunal, to demoralize and degrade Professor Peterson and, by proxy, all of us. Because they're not going after some YouTube nobody like me. They're going after a guy who occupies a high, respected intellectual position in our society, a highly accomplished and senior academician who teaches psychology at the University of Toronto. And if they can break him down, if they can demoralize him to the extent that they force him to comply and to start using these make-believe, silly, meaning-obscuring words, then they can break down all of us. The purpose of this is not to prevent the dehumanization of some tiny minority of transgendered people or self-selected transgender who wear their gender as if it's a fashion statement. Remember, Professor Peterson is an educator whose entire life's work is the elevation and the ennoblement of the minds of his students. To say that he is dehumanizing them is grotesque and foul. But they're using that to try to force him to break down his own sense of self. This imposition under penalty to replace your language with language that you don't want to use, but we're going to force you to use it, is a way to demoralize you and break you down. And through this respected person, Professor Peterson, the members of the public. The Ontario Social Justice Tribunal, and we have one in every province with the various naming conventions, is not to protect the humanity of designated victim classes. It is to demoralize and degrade the public, the individual members of the public's sense of self and sense of value. And that's why I will never comply. If somebody, some friend or some colleague or somebody who I would normally have some respect for says, John, I prefer if you, instead of calling me him, you call me Zim. Well, I'll probably go along with that because I like to get along with people. But when an authoritative, semi-legalistic, and secretive star chamber tells me, you're not allowed to use him, her anymore, we're going to force you to use some new made-up set of words, I will never go along with it because I will not be demoralized, and I don't think you should be either. Thanks very much for watching, and as always, have a lovely day.